Hi there, and welcome back to our Ask Megan series. My name is Megan Sumrell. I am a time management expert for women, and I am on a mission to bring work-life harmony to as many women over the world as possible. This series has been an opportunity for me to answer questions from our viewers and our subscribers around all things time management, organization, and productivity. Today's question is one I hear a lot, which is how can I better manage interruptions and distractions? Now, usually your brain will kind of lump interruptions and distractions together. The fact is, they're actually separate. So, we're going to talk about those separately here today. And interruptions is actually a form of a specific type of distraction. All right. So, first, let's talk about interruptions. So, interruptions is truly when you are in the middle of working on something and then somebody or something, sometimes my dog may make an appearance, will come in and interrupt you. All right. So, for today's video here, when I'm talking about interruptions, first we're going to talk about interruptions from people and then interruptions from technology. So, whether you work, I'm going to give you some tips for managing interruptions from people, whether you are either in an office setting or a home setting as well, because we have to navigate these, particularly in the world that we live in today. A lot of us are working from home, or maybe you're just trying to get something done at home and you have family members that are interrupting you. All right. So, first, let's talk about an office setting with interruptions. If possible, if you are someone that has an actual office with a door, this is where leveraging an open door versus closed door policy can be really powerful. So, back in my more corporate setting, when I was actually in a facility where I had an office with a door, I communicated with everyone. If my office door is shut, that means that I am working on something where I cannot be interrupted unless it is a dire emergency. Otherwise, if my door is open, that is your signal that I am here and available for questions, etc. Now, if possible, you want to actually kind of establish some routine hours so that people can start to plan for that. Now, it takes some breaking in with the people that you work with, and the fact when they start to see that there are regular times throughout the day where your door is open, then they know that's the time for them to come in. Now, what this allows for you is to save up the type of work where you really need uninterrupted focus for the times where your door is shut. Now, what if you're in an environment, maybe a cubicle or something like that, where you don't have the ability to shut a door? For a long time, both at work and at home, I did not have doors. And so what I created was a sign that I would then hang on the back of my chair, just a basic do not disturb sign that served the same purpose. And you could actually have it two-sided so that you can have it, almost saying do not disturb on your chair for times where you are not available for interruptions versus flipping it over saying, hey, I'm available for questions. So having a visual indicator to either people at home or at work, letting them know when you are available for an interruption versus when you simply cannot be disturbed can be a massive game changer. Now, let's talk about some of those interruptions that aren't people-based, but a lot of our interruptions today come from technology, right? In the form of phone calls, text messages, email notifications. Both our computers and our mobile devices have the ability to make visual and audible interruptions all the time. And I know I've probably brought this up in 90% of the training videos that I do, regardless of topic, because so many of them tie into this same fundamental thing that I want to encourage all of you to do is simply this: turn off all notifications on all of your technology so that it is not interrupting you nonstop. Now, the good news is this: a lot of people are like, oh, Megan, I can't do that because what if, school were to call? I need to know that if I have a sick child, or, what if I have a family member on travel and I want to be able to pick up the phone when they call, so on and so forth. Well, the good news is this: our technology has gotten so sophisticated today that you can set up your devices at a granular enough level to say, hey, don't phone calls, for example. Don't make an audible ringing of my phone unless it's one of these certain phone numbers. So for me, my phone never rings unless it is school calling or my spouse, because I know that is important enough that I do actually want to be interrupted. So you can set all of that up as well. And then have set times throughout the day where you go in and check on your messages, your email, your texts, etc., to respond to, so that your technology is not interrupting you all day long. All right, so now let's talk more at a broader scale around this distractions, right? Interruptions is one form of a distraction, where it's somebody actually coming in and disrupting what you're doing, or your phone making a noise that's interrupting you that now has you distracted from what you were doing. All right, but let's talk about other types of distractions. Now, the biggest distraction you have today, it may not be what you think of. A lot of us will say, oh, probably our mobile phones. That is a big one. But the biggest distraction that you have is actually right up here between your own two ears. Your own mind, your own brain is your biggest distraction. So when we really sit back and think about distractions as a whole, they fall into what I like to label as either internal distractions, meaning our own mind distracting us, or external distractions, interruptions being one form of those external ones, all right? So let's talk a little bit about this idea of internal distractions. So our brain, our mind is so incredibly powerful. And oftentimes when we are sitting down to work on something, it's our own thoughts that start to distract us, right? A lot of us might remember the movie Up, where it's like Squirrel, where we're constantly being distracted by things in our own mind. Well, one of the root causes for this is that the vast majority of people today don't have any systems in place to manage the information overload that we are all dealing with all day long. So all of a sudden our brain remembers something, or we think of something, and because we don't have a good system in place for where to take that idea out of our brain and put it somewhere external to go and reference later, what happens is our brain starts thinking, I've got to remember all this. I've got to remember all this. And so now we just keep cramming more information in there, which then opens the door for nonstop distractions. So while we're working on project A, our mind is over here running its own nonstop race, trying to remember everything. And that lends itself to very distracted thoughts. So one of the first things that I do with students inside of my top program is we learn how to create a centralized hub of information, so that when an idea pops up or something comes at us, instead of trying to hold it in our brain and remember it, you have an external place outside of your brain, this central information hub, to go store all of those things, so that can then quiet the space in your brain to relax and to stay focused much easier. Now, the easiest tip that I can give you, I obviously can't share with you the entire centralized hub information that we go through inside of the top program, but one of the best things that you can do is get one and only one notebook. This is the current one I'm working with at my desk. And wherever you are sitting to do your focused work, have a piece of paper or a notebook on the ready, so that if your mind starts getting distracted with something that is worried it needs to hold on to and remember, you have a resource to go and dump that information on to quiet your brain so that you can reclaim your focus again. When you get this set up and you always have a place to go and store all of that, your brain starts to see it. And so it starts to allow the ability for your focus to get better and better. So that's a little bit on more the internal distractions. Another piece of internal distractions that can happen is if we don't have set times where we're going to take a break on what we're working on, our mind will start to wander when it needs its own break, right? So one of the best things that you can do to help prevent that kind of a distraction is to kind of learn what is your max kind of focused working power before you need a break. You may have heard of the Pomodoro technique. It doesn't work well for me, but it does for certain types of people, where you work for 20 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. I think I'm getting those times right. So for me, I like to work in a little bit longer stretches of time, but I never allow myself to work for more than 60 minutes without stepping away for a 5 or 10-minute break. Now, because I have that built into my weekly plan, when I sit down to work, that actually helps minimize my own internal distractions, because I know, hey, I've got a break coming up where I can sit back, let my mind wander, get pulled into different tangents, etc. And my brain knows that because it sees it in my plan and it knows that I do that regularly. So that also helps to quiet some of that internal mind wandering. So if you find that that's happening to you a lot, it may be that you don't have enough breaks throughout your day to let your brain, your body, everything recover. One of the best things you can do is just get up and go stretch your legs for 3 or 4 minutes, walk around, get a fresh cup of water before you sit back down to focus back in on your work again. Now let's talk again about some of those external distractions. We already covered interruptions in the form of people, right? And we've talked about interruptions in the form of our technology. All right, and those can be two massive distractions, are the notifications coming on from our technology and people interrupting us. Now, a third external distraction can simply just be noise, right? You may work in an environment where there's a lot of noise that causes and lends itself to you easily being distracted. This is where potentially investing in a pair of noise canceling headphones can be a real game changer for you. Now, it's kind of interesting, and I haven't found a set pattern yet of the type of people that prefer dead silence versus kind of white background noise. For me, if I am doing any kind of writing or that type of creative work, I do need quiet. And so that's where I will use noise canceling devices if where I'm working tends to have a lot of noise for the day. Now, other types of work, I find that I get easily distracted if I don't have some kind of a white noise or background noise to fill that distracted part of my brain. So with some, like if I'm doing technology type work, I will sometimes put on very quiet music in the background that actually keeps that distracted part of my brain listening to the music, and the rest of me can stay focused on the task at hand. Again, these are things that you will need to learn what works well for yourself. But if noise is something that really is a big distraction for you, there are incredible noise canceling, both earbuds and headphones that you can invest in that can be a really, really great game changer for you as well. Now, if you have any questions that you want me to cover here, remember you can submit them over at team@megansumrell.com, and I will be sure to answer your questions.